Professor of Strategic Leadership and Governance at Henley Business School, joins me now. Welcome to the program. Do we have any idea what Donald Trump means by the special relationship?
Well, I think he thinks it's special, which means that he has some historical view of what has transpired before, but I think he's looking for a new chemistry between himself and Mrs. May. Is
he, in your view, genuinely pro-British, sympathetic to Britain, in a way that Mr. Obama might not have been?
Well, I think it's really a contrast between day and night. His mother was born in Stornoway on the Isle of Lewis. Her favorite person was the Queen. Donald Trump loves Great Britain.
Mrs. May spoke tonight in Philadelphia to a convention of Republican congressional politicians, and she even talked about a new special relationship, a new age of Anglo-American leadership. That's what she was said. Is it not risky to rely too much on a president who's widely regarded as a bit of a loose cannon?
Yes, I think it's a sign actually of the vulnerability that she senses about herself. I mean, she does feel, pretty isolated on the European issue, and she obviously thinks it's very important to be close to the United States. There is a risk, while she's there, she's going to be asked whether she agrees with the president on his views on trade, his views on immigration, his views on torture, and of course on none of those things does she agree. And it will be quite deft of her to voice her disagreement without, as it were, blowing the visit out of the water.
Well, sure. I mean, what she wants is to cement Anglo-American relations on defense, intelligence. She wants to open the way to a free trade deal. A lot of people here, particularly on the left and centre left, they basically want her to lecture the president about the wall, waterboarding, women's rights.
Yes, well,
should she succumb to that?
No, she'll definitely not get into the business of lecturing the president, but she will find it difficult not to answer questions on these subjects. And she won't want to antagonize the president. Neither will she particularly want the president, if he gives voice to his enthusiasm for Brexit, to go on and say that he'd welcome the demise of the European Union, because apparently,
because she said she doesn't.
Apparently, our position is that whilst we think it's such a ridiculous organisation that we're very happy to withdraw from it, we nonetheless would like this ridiculous organisation to survive.
As she said in her Lancaster
More or
speech.
less. I paraphrase.
And virtually said the same to Mrs. Merkel in a call afterwards that night, and to Donald Tusk. It's a tricky one for Mrs. May. It's not easy, but it's kind of hard. If you have in the Oval Office someone who's pro-British, someone who's pro-Brexit, someone who does seem enthusiastic about the special relationship, it's kind of hard for a British Prime Minister not to take advantage of that.
Of course, she had to go there. But she's been Home Secretary, and she's been Home Secretary for a long time, which means she'd have had very close relationships with the American security services. And they will be, apart from a few people at the top, the same people. And so I think in particular, the waterboarding, the torture comment they made today, that's very important, because the British and American security services work so closely together and cooperate so closely together. We couldn't do that.
No, but he said he's not going to do it either.
Well, he said he was going to take advice from his...
from the two people who are against it.
It was already said
they're against it.
Mad Dog Mattis has said he doesn't want to
It's not going to happen.
touch it. I mean, in a sense, Mr. Trump today on that issue was a classic Trump. He played to his base by saying, oh, well, if it was up to me, I would do it. I think it works. And then he said, but of course, I'm going to listen to Mad Dog Mattis, Mr. Pompeo, who'll be the new director of the CIA, and they've both said not to do it.
The general has said it doesn't work.
Yeah.
I mean, which is the best advice.
Mr. Trump said it did, on advice that we don't know where it was sourced from.
Well, we know that it has worked on a few occasions. So the question is there an occasion when you would use an extreme form of interrogation?
And you'll see if it comes. I want to stick with some wider subjects tonight. Is a free trade deal with the UK, a bilateral US-UK free trade deal, is that a priority for Mr. Trump?
I think it is. I think he's gone out of his way to say that this is something he wants to achieve. And he's willing to do it in record time. He's invited her over primarily for this reason. And it meets Britain, frankly, at its time of greatest need.
He's also pro-Brexit, which is a total change of any from before who's been in the Oval Office. He has no enthusiasm for EU integration. or
You
any
noticed?
Further, yep. And he's also not a big pal of the Germans or Mrs. Merkel either.
Well, he said some things about Germany that have caused concern in those circles.
So, is he prepared to expend political capital to help Britain in Brexit?
I think he is. He doesn't like an organization that is supranational, that is unelected, where the bureaucrats run amok, and that is not, frankly, a proper democracy.
If we start down the road of doing a free trade deal with America, and of course we can't conclude one or sign one until the Brexit process is over, but we could do a heads of agreement, we could outline what it would be, nobody can stop Britain from doing that. Wouldn't the EU then look churlish if it didn't say, yeah, we'll do a free trade deal too?
I suppose so. I don't think it's going to happen like that. Yes, there could be a trade deal concluded very quickly. I think Ted said 9 months somewhere. And Queen's Park Rangers could end up winning the championship and win every game 6-0 from now
How
to the
about
end
Leicester?
of the season. Yeah.
Boom, boom.
Yeah, they're not Queen's Park Rangers. You don't know Queen's Park Rangers, Ted. I've supported them
I
for
don't
many
know
years.
Queen's Park Rangers either.
So these things, are they likely? We export £240 billion worth of goods to the European Union. We export around £30 billion worth of goods to America. Now, our nearest and biggest market has to be a priority for us to maintain what we've already got before we go off into some adventure.
But that's why she wants a free trade deal with the EU too.
I want a free trade deal with America, but the thought that Donald Trump is somehow going to help us by doing a free trade deal before we've gone through the process of Article 50 and then renegotiate our way back in to our biggest and nearest market is fantasy.
Does having a pro-Brexit president in the Oval Office strengthen Mrs May's negotiating hand with the EU?
Certainly up to a point it does. I mean, as you've commented, this is unknown terrain for us. We've never had a president who's understood our position in the European Union before. However, if he voices the sort of analysis that Ted has just voiced, with which I don't disagree about the European Union, there is a danger, of course, that our European partners will assume that Mrs May is really just like Donald Trump, that is to say, that she really wants to bring down the European Union, in which case that would make our negotiating position more difficult.
What do you mean by our position, Michael? Previous American presidents have understood our position, because our position was to be in the European Union.
And they always supported that. I mean,
What I meant was our position of discomfort within the European Union.
This is a watershed change, and I wondered if something happened today. Am I right in thinking that Mrs Merkel said that she would go at short notice to see Mr Trump, and he hasn't even replied yet to give her a date?
I think she's anxious to see him, and he's had a cool approach to the Germans, and he said some things both about the euro and about the way that the European Union is tilted towards Germany. So I'm sure it's raised eyebrows, if not antagonisms, in Berlin.
So maybe the Germans will want Mrs May to be something of an intermediary, an emissary.
Well, she's going to Turkey next, I think.
Who, Mrs Merkel? Or Mrs.
No,
May?
Mrs. May.
Mrs May, right. Why do you want to be US ambassador to the EU? I mean, you're clearly not a great fan of Brussels or his bureaucrats like Jean-Claude Juncker.
Well, I had in a previous career a diplomatic post where I helped to bring down the Soviet Union. So maybe there's another union that needs a little taming.
So
if I may say so, Andrew, it's only the British who believe that an ambassador from one country to another has to take on the point of view of the country to which he's sent, rather than the point of view of the country which is sending him.
It's
Yeah,
a bit
this is the
unusual
EU.
to send an ambassador to bring down the country to
EU,
which you have been sent to.
Well, I think we want the American ambassador to the EU to represent America, not the EU.
What do you think of Mr Juncker?
Well, Mr. Juncker was a very adequate mayor, I think, of some city in Luxembourg, and maybe he should go back and do that again.
Well, this is clearly going to be a very diplomatic appointment when you get there. Will you keep in touch with us?
Just have a chat with Nigel Farage. He's in the same diplomatic corps as you.
This is going to be more fun than Washington.
I think so.
Yeah, well, we'll look forward to it. Thank you for being with us. Next time we'll have to call you Mr. Ambassador.
We will make America great again.